WBAP's Morning News with Brian and Hal Jay.
News Talk 820 WBAP.
99.5 FM HD2.
And WBAP.com.
6:36 at WBAP. We started the show talking about President Biden on his trip to Europe.
Yes.
This is an important trip here because obviously he's at the G7. He's calling for Russia to be kicked out of the G20. Joining us right now is Andrew Donaldson. He's a writer and commentator, served as the managing editor of Ordinary Times since 2018. And Andrew, we want to get your take on this because there is some pressure on the president, obviously, to rally the allies and get them all singing out of the same hymnal. How hard will that be?
It won't be too hard because they're mostly on the same page. It's just a matter of whether he's leading the choir or he's just singing as a part of the choir. We've kind of been following Europe's lead, and some of that's appropriate because this is, it's on their doorstep. We should defer to them a little bit. But I don't know how much leading he's doing. We're doing a lot of reactionary where, take a couple weeks ago when we had the White House press conference where he was asked directly about sanctioning Vladimir Putin personally, and he kind of went deer in the headlights and the press got after him a little bit. And then the next day he comes out and goes, oh, well, of course we're going to sanction him. This president seems to have a thing about the optics, and it doesn't always match the policy, and then there's a reactionary phase, and then they kind of adapt from there. You can't do that when you're on a live trip like that, so hopefully he has smoothed things over with our allies. We're all on the same page, which it seems like we are on the same page, but we need to pay really close to the policies that they come out of here and not just look at the headlines, but look at the details of what they're agreeing to here.
Details and policy, that's a great point because so far, to me, this summit looks like it's just all for show. Is that possible?
It's not for show, but a lot of it is not what it's made out to be. Like this natural gas deal that came out today, energy's a big thing down y'all's way. 15 billion cubic units of liquefied natural gas. Well, that sounds great. Let's export more natural gas. That's good for our country, too. It helps them out. Well, the thing is, Europe needs 540 billion, right, and 240 of that comes from Russia. They're trying to replace 40% of their energy sector, 240 BCUs. 15 billion BCUs is just kind of a drop in the bucket. Plus, we've got to ship it transatlantically. It's going to take time for the logistics of that to catch up. So it's a great headline. It's a good idea. It's just practically it's not going to have a great big impact immediately. Now, down the road, they want to scale that up to about 50 BCUs, and that would be great. And it's good for us. Again, our country does great when we're exporting energy instead of importing it. But, again, got to go past that headline a little bit and see if the policy's matching up. And this is something that's going to take time, and it goes to show that these are things that we should have already had our house in order with things like policy and energy so that we didn't have to ramp up and do this. We should have been doing this stuff already.
Can you say the same thing about agriculture where he says he's going to meet with the Canadian Prime Minister about increasing our ag production because of the delays that'll be coming out of Ukraine and Russia as far as wheat and other things are concerned? Again, is this slow to react to a problem you knew was going to be an issue?
Well, Ukraine used to be called the breadbasket of the Soviet Union, and it's the breadbasket for a lot of the world. It's one of the largest grain. Listen, what Vladimir Putin has done here is going to kill a lot more than Ukrainians because they're already talking about famine in Africa, famine in Southeast Asia, places, parts of the Middle East that really rely on Ukrainian and Russian grain. Russia puts out a whole lot of grain themselves. A lot of people are going to die, and it's not going to make the news because it doesn't have the bombs and the images that the war in Ukraine does. A lot of people are going to die because of the food shortages that are going to come out of this. So, yes, it's very important. Canada has a wonderful agriculture. A lot of people have argued policy-wise, we need to unleash agriculture in America. We've subsidized it. We've kind of pigeonholed it into corporate settings and things. We could do a lot more agriculturally ourselves, but yes, if our Canadian friends want to do it, we absolutely support them. We should look at our own house as well and look at our own agricultural policies. We could do a whole lot better than what we're doing with it.
Biden said he talked about food supply shortages in America itself, as well as us. Is that something that he meant to alarm Americans about? I mean, it got my ear going, food shortages? What do you mean food shortages?
Yeah, if you're the president of the United States, you need to be very careful saying that because there's one thing being there's one thing being pragmatic and being upfront and say, like, look how he mishandled the gas price thing. All you had to do was come out and say, look, gas prices are already high. This is going to make it even higher. Well, now you look silly just saying, well, this was all Russia because people know their gas prices are going up. People understand that the food situation in the supply chain, because we just spent 2 years educating everybody in America on the supply chain finally. I think a lot of people learned a lot of lessons on that. Can we all admit that? We understand world events affect the supply chain, but you don't want to do – this is almost like the COVID thing where he said we're going to have a winter of death and despair. Like, no, that's not leadership. not thinking before you speak. Yes, there may be stress on the supply chain, but say, look, this is going to be a challenge. Here's how we meet these challenges. Don't just say there's going to be food shortages because you now have a panic. And like we learned with something silly like toilet paper, if you have those kind of panics with something serious like the food supply, you could do a lot of damage to a lot of people in a big hurry if you're not careful with your rhetoric.
This is also a spin technique, is it not, in that he can say this now, and then when things get better, he can say, look how I let us out of this.
Look, we got 50 years of book on Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got 50 years of book on Joe Biden. He has two modes. He has all shucks, and then he bows up. And it's usually one of those two things. So I don't know how he'll do that under crisis, because neither one of those works really, really good under crisis. Joe Biden's not going to change. Joe Biden, whether you approve of him, you disapprove of him, voted for him, didn't vote for him, he's who he is at this stage of his game. We know what he is. We know how he handles things. This is how he handles things. He's big on rhetoric. He's shaky on policy. He's not steady on things like foreign policy. I hope he improves, because he's the president and the country needs him to improve. Hopefully he's singing on the same songbook with our allies right now, but I do have concerns about that sort of thing.
In other words, you're stuck with him, Hal. Thank you much.
Stop it.
No,
Andrew Donaldson, thank you.
Thank you for the insight there. Yeah, traffic right now. Here's